And now for the other side. I'm joined by Mallory Quigley. She's Vice President for Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List, a national anti-abortion organization. Welcome to the NewsHour.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the state of Missouri is saying it's got to close the Planned Parenthood clinic because that clinic, they say, is violating health standards. And you heard Dr. Leana Wen of Planned Parenthood. They say the state just keeps trying to move the goalpost, that their real aim is just to close the clinic and stop abortions in Missouri totally. What is your take on that?
I think we just had to look at the facts. It was a patient complaint that actually prompted the investigation into the clinic, and they found multiple violations. A woman who went in for abortion actually remained pregnant. There's talk of botched abortions, failure to do proper informed consent. Actually, an ambulance has been called to this particular facility in St. Louis more than 70 times since 2009. That, she mentioned, a public health crisis. That sounds like a public health crisis to me. We know what happens when public health officials don't inspect abortion facilities. It happened in Pennsylvania for 17 years. They did not inspect clinics. Kermit Gosnell was convicted eventually of killing unborn children that had been born alive, and the death of one patient. In fact, EMS could not get her out because the hallways weren't wide enough, and there was debris everywhere. So these regulations aren't arbitrary. They're about the health and safety of women.
I should state for the record that the case you're citing is not a Planned Parenthood clinic, but it was, yes, an unregulated.
True. I'm speaking to the Missouri Department of Health is tasked with protecting the health and safety of women. That's what they're trying to do here.
But let's just say that Planned Parenthood clinic, the only abortion providing clinic in Missouri, were to not be able to do that. Don't you worry that women who still would like to have an abortion will proceed to find that procedure in much more dangerous, much more unregulated ways, and that in the end could be much more harmful to women in Missouri?
Well, I mean, I think that just because it's the last abortion facility doesn't mean that it shouldn't be held to any standards. Planned Parenthood shouldn't get special treatment because they want to stay open. There is actually a Planned Parenthood clinic doing abortions just across the river, so it is quite nearby to St. Louis. But I think that we're really speaking about the issue of abortion and less access. We need to provide better answers for women who are facing unexpected pregnancies. Abortion isn't the best solution.
Right, but should women, it's still a legal procedure under Roe v. Wade that women across the country, and the majority of women polled in almost every state in the country argue, I understand the position of the anti-abortion movement, but this is still a legal procedure. It is my body, and I would like to have the right, with consultation with my doctor and my partner perhaps, to make this choice for myself.
Well, in Missouri, the people, the duly elected representatives of the people, they sent them to Jefferson City with a mandate to protect life. And I would argue that this is the problem with Roe versus Wade, is that it was profoundly undemocratic, prevented the states from reaching consensus, and now what we're having is a breakthrough moment where state legislators want to go ahead and have these debates, and Missouri has passed sweeping pro-life protections by the way that it was meant to be done, through the legislature, not through the courts.
Missouri, as you mentioned, is one of many states that is going through this process of enacting restrictions on abortion, and many advocates say we are trying to trigger a Supreme Court challenge. We would love the Supreme Court to take this up. Do you think that review would go in your favor?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know which bill that they'll choose to take up. Missouri, for example, the legislators really threw in the kitchen sink. It limits abortion at 8 weeks. It also limits abortion at 5 months, which is when science tells us that the unborn child can feel pain. And there's a slew of other regulations. So I do think that a time is coming. The court's probably looking at what's happening across the country, not just states in Missouri and Louisiana, the Deep South. We have, pro-life protections passing elsewhere across the country. There's really a lot of momentum, and this tells us that Roe versus Wade isn't settled in the hearts and minds of the American people. And so I do believe that the court is going to have to eventually take up one of these cases. The pro-life movement's doing its part to give the court a wide range of options.
All right, Mallory Quigley of the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.